Hey guys, so I want to do this real quickly while I can. But I wanted to come on here and do a video in response to what really a lot of people were talking about last night when it came to AEW Dynamite. You see, a lot of folks felt that AEW Dynamite had been, over the past couple of weeks, hitting it out of the park, to coin a phrase, with the show and what they were presenting. Not just from an in-ring standpoint, but somewhat from a storyline standpoint. But here's the thing though, even though they were hitting some home runs, there were a few issues here and there when it came to what they were presenting. But then came last night. And last night was like a real shocker to a lot of folks because all of a sudden, after weeks of hitting it out of the park constantly with good in-ring competition and storytelling to back it up, last night they basically laid an egg. In other words, they had a dud. In other words, they basically struck out, if you will. Now, not saying, here's the thing. Nobody is saying the show wasn't bad. It's just that it seemed that the unfocused lack of storytelling, the unfocused lack of true storytelling is what hurt it. And what they mean is you had various examples last night of storytelling just going awry, if you will. Like, you have the guns, okay? You have the guns, Austin and Colton, Billy Gunn's sons. Now the new AEW tag champs after beating the Acclaim last week. You have them coming out and taunting the Acclaim, and instead of hearing that, hey, we might have a rematch at Revolution, you find out that technically that's kind of 1/4 of being true, because instead of just a regular, tag team rematch for the titles, with the possibility that what everybody is predicting could happen, and that's Billy Gunn portraying the Acclaim to side with his son. Then instead of having that kind of a match, instead you're going to have a four-way dance, or a fatal four-way, with the Acclaimed challenging the Guns along with two other tag teams. But why? Why is that? Why can't you just, follow the story and say, hey, let's do the rematch, have the Acclaimed lose at Revolution, and this time because Billy Gunn betrayed them? Why can't we have that? And that's a good question. We don't know. We don't know why we can't have that, but apparently, that's an example last night of the whole lack of storytelling. Like, where is the storytelling when you need it when it comes to things like that? Then, on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, on top of that, you have the situation of the Outsiders versus original storyline. Like, where are you going with that? I mean, here you have Ruby Soho kind of like in the middle. She's kind of like somewhat in that role of, which Sting, if you will, Sting, and later on in Impact, AJ Styles and others have taken on, to where, you don't know who they're going to side with, if at all. Or are they just going to be a lone wolf, or a lone wolfette, if you will. When it comes to Ruby, or lone vixen, if you will, when it comes to Ruby. It's like, are they just going to be their own person? We don't know. We don't know. And right now, that seems to be the role Ruby's in, but the context, even though it started out potentially good, is getting lost. It's like, what's the direction of this if you're going to get to basically your first ever women's blood and guts match, your third blood and guts match, period, as far as I know, but your first all women's one? How are you going to get to that? What's the payoff and everything? Who's going to join the outsider side? Who's going to join the original side? Where does Ruby, fall into all of this? What's her role and everything? And, these are good questions to want to have answered. And you would think, by now we'd have a little bit more context. And it seems that we don't. It seems that we don't have that context right now because of the fact that Tony Khan is more focused on writing the stories himself instead of getting people to help him out. And that to me is kind of backfiring on him in a huge, huge way. And he doesn't need that kind of a backfiring on him at this time, if you will. He does not need that. He does not need that right now. He doesn't need it, period. So if I'm Tony Khan, I call upon somebody else creatively on my staff or go out and find somebody that I know can do some decent storytelling. Because that way, if you bring in somebody that knows about or has experience in long-term storytelling, then maybe you can get something off the ground. But what that will be, we don't know. We currently don't know. Or who he could bring in, we don't know. But yeah, it seems that Tony Khan is taking all this upon himself, which is why you're seeing this lack of focus when it comes to the gun storyline with the Acclaimed and their dad. And now the obvious lack of storytelling and focus when it comes to the outsiders of the women's division against the originals. You're lacking that focus. But here's the other thing too. What about everybody else? What about the Blackpool Combat Club? And what's their status? What's their status right now? I mean, you have two of them that are going to be primary prominent figures for Ring of Honor when it starts up its TV deal, starts up its Honor Club television deal, if you will, on the 2nd. So you're going to have them more focused there. And then what about Moxley and Danielson, who are also part of the group? What's going on? What's their role in the group? We know Danielson is challenging for the AEW World Championship, in a 60-minute Iron Man match at Revolution, which is going to be a great match. I'll give you no qualms on that against MJF. But then where do you go from there after that match? And then you have Moxley against Adam Page, in a Texas death match. And then that was kind of almost another example of where the storytelling is kind of getting lackluster, because Moxley was like, oh, I don't want to fight you again. And Page is like, no, you and I are one-on-one. Or one-and-one, I should say. You and I are one-on-one. One-and-one, we need this last match. So apparently we're going to get that match, in Texas deathmatch style at Revolution. And it's like Moxley just didn't want to fight him. And, here's the thing, even though Moxley and him agreed to this match, because, again, Adam Page made a good point that, hey, you and I are 1-for-1 against each other. We need to have our blow-off. What's interesting is, and everybody else pointed this out, is the fact that over the past several weeks, if not the past month, you've had each man want to tear into each other when they got, in eyesight of each other. When they got within maybe not even 5 feet, not even 10 feet of each other, they wanted to tear into each other. And you had to have security and other wrestlers and referees come out and, break them up. Prevent, any injuries from happening. And yet here you have Moxley just casually come down and, kind of not want to fight, kind of say, hey, I don't want to fight you anymore, Adam Page. Until Adam Page is like, no, you and I are 1-for-1 against each other. We need to have a blow-off match. And it's like, where's the story consistency there? It's like, I thought, as soon as Moxley showed up, here comes some referees. None of that happened. You know, and here's the thing too. You do have some gems in. You do have some gems here. I mean, MJF Danielson is a gem. There's no doubt. You know, Christian Cage coming back and attacking Jungle Boy and revealing he's 100% or at least close to it. You know, setting up a match for Revolution. You know, that's another one. But what else is there? I mean, you have the whole Ricky Starks Jericho situation. It's like, okay, where do you go from there now? Because apparently, you know, they made, you know, Starks looked out, you know, they basically made Starks, you know, look out to be, you know, basically made Starks to look at, or made Starks to look like a fool. Yeah, made him out to look like a fool last week. You know, when he ran the gauntlet and lost to Daniel Garcia thanks to Jericho in disguise in a mask, you know, which he was sitting in the front row wearing for the first 15 minutes of the show. And now, what are you going to do from now? Now, what are you going to do with that? You're just going to drop it? You're not going to have the match at Revolution? You know, you have to have it. You have to have an explanation as to why this happened and why wasn't Starks on there. Are you going to have him follow it up on Rampage? Are you going to have him follow it up on Rampage? Because if you do, okay, that's fine. But Rampage doesn't get that many viewers. It doesn't get that many viewers because nobody cares. You know, nobody cares about Rampage. They just look at it as a more elevated Dark Evolution. No, not Evolution, but they look at it as a more elevated Dark Elevation and AEW Dark, period, but on a more national level than just YouTube. So, again, it's like, where's the consistency in that? You know, it doesn't feel like the dots are connecting like they were over the past several months. And you have to ask yourself, what is going on? What has caused Tony Khan to lose, you know, focus? You know, what's happening? You know, is it maybe because of the fact that he recently came out? You know, he recently came out and said that a real war, quote unquote, a real war between WWE and AEW is happening because of the contract tampering, you know, between both companies. I mean, his thing, people are saying that he's being a hypocrite by accusing WWE of doing this when there's no doubt, and they are right about this. They are right, no matter how much you want to defend Tony Khan and AEW. People are right about this. You know, AEW and Tony Khan are just as guilty of contract tampering than anybody else. Because think about it. How else would they be able to time, you know, debuting certain talents coming out of WWE? Like a Danielson, if you will. How were they able to do that? Like an Adam Cole. How were they able to do that? Because they tampered. You know, they tampered. Not in the way that they're accusing WWE of doing, but still, they tampered. And yet he wants to accuse WWE of doing this and thus creating a real war where there's real hatred, if you will, real disdain. And it's like, you know, dude, what are you smoking? You know, what drugs are you on right now? That is what people are asking. It's like, what's gotten into him? You know, is it because he has nothing else to occupy his mind now? You know, the Jaguars season's over. His Premier Soccer League is yet to start their new season. It's like, are you so bored right now that you're trying to turn something, you know, you're trying to basically turn nothing into something for no reason? You're trying to come up with various, you know, ways to, you know, get people to have interest in your product. It's like, what's the deal? What's the issue? You know, it doesn't, I mean, honestly, folks, it does not make any true sense. It really doesn't. It doesn't make any really true sense, you know, in the long run. And I hate to say this, but I think Tony Khan needs to get, I think Tony Khan, just like he did last year, is letting that fan side of his mind take over. He's letting that fan side of him take over, and because he's allowing that to happen, he's losing focus. You know, is it because, you know, he potentially could be getting CM Punk back and everything within the next, you know, couple of months? And, you know, potentially we have a storyline right there that, yes, arguably could put AEW in the stratosphere and put them on the level of WWE with Punk and FTR against the Elite, potentially for the trios titles? Yeah, 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 maybe, is there a possibility he's, focusing more on that, that happening and not paying attention to what's going on right now? Perhaps, because yes, there's no doubt as a fan, he realizes the potential, the box office potential that has. But still, even though you have focus on, hey, I might be getting CM Punk back, and I might be able to re-sign FTR to an extension on the contracts to get this feud to happen, it doesn't mean you should focus and lack your storytelling on everything else currently going on, because you should focus more on the here and the now and not what's to potentially come, even especially if it doesn't come when you're expecting it to. And it's like basically he's letting all these things, filter his mind because he has nothing else to do right now. It's filtering his mind, and he's losing focus. And he's letting that fan side of his come back out. And it's like I told Alex, I think, he believes that a fan can do a better job storytelling-wise than the WWE. And if that's the case here, if that's the case to where he's letting that fan side of himself come out, where he believes, hey, I'm a fan, I can do better than these actual storytellers in wrestling when it comes to writing stories. If that's his mindset, and he has a mindset of, yeah, I'm going to just write certain stories that I feel is more important than everything because I'm more focused on this real war going on with the company and all that. And, I'm also more focused on potentially writing my magnum opus when CM Punk comes back in the next few months so that we can do that trios feud. It's like, it's like his mindset as a, that fan mentality side of his is taking over so much that he's believing things, and he's believing that certain things are happening the way they are. He believes certain things are going to work out the way they are and all that because, he's lacking, because his focus is lacking. He has nothing else to occupy his mind. I mean, when he was helping his father during the NFL season run the Jacksonville Jaguars, when he was helping his father, help run the Premier League and everything during their season, his focus wasn't lacking. Because when he wasn't focused on AEW or Ring of Honor, he was focusing on Jacksonville Jaguars. He was focusing on their Premier League in Newcastle, I think, or whatever one it is. He was focusing on that, and because he had focus there outside of All Elite Wrestling and Ring of Honor, it didn't affect his story writing. It didn't affect his mental judgment. And that's what's going on right now. He doesn't have anything to do right now, so his focus is lacking. His focus is all over the place. And because his focus is all over the place, he basically is allowing himself to be more of a fan than a business person. Because of that, he's basically not keeping track of what needs to be focused on when it comes to his wrestling product, when it comes to his wrestling promotion and everything. I mean, yeah, it's great that he announced in an interview that that Ring of Honor is getting a television deal started on March 2nd with Honor Club. That's great and everything. But still, it's like outside of that, you're lacking focus. You need to focus. And if I'm Tony Khan, I get myself a group of people that I know are experienced in storytelling in the business that I currently have under my radar, under my employment. I get them, I sit them down and I ask them, hey, where do we go from here? How do I fix this? How do I make this work in my favor and in my company's favor, and thus not lack the focus I'm currently lacking as we speak? That's what I would do if I'm Tony Khan. Because you have a pay-per-view in less than 2 weeks now. In less than 2 weeks. Well, actually a little over 2 weeks, but basically within the span of 16 days. 16 days you have, a pay-per-view in Revolution. You need, in this next 2 weeks, next 2 weeks, if you will, this Friday on Rampage, this Wednesday on Dynamite, this upcoming Friday on Rampage, a week from Friday, these next 2 Rampages, and this next Dynamite, if you will, you need to use these, shows to put emphasis and importance as to why people should, buy the pay-per-view, Revolution, and why people in the Bay Area, Northern California, should buy tickets to the Chase Center to watch Revolution. You need to put those emphasis on those things right there and show why you need to go and attend this event or order this event. That's what you need to do if you're Tony Khan. Do not lack your focus. Don't let what WWE is doing, because apparently that might be another issue too. Don't let the momentum they're getting right now unravel you. Do not let the momentum they got going right now with the whole Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns deal, the whole Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns deal. Don't let that, unfocus you. Focus on your product and not what they're doing, especially with somebody that you could have made your world champion, and, had you not basically convinced them to say, oh, put your future title shots on the line legitimately if you, in a match against Jericho, and if you lose, you don't get no title shots. It's like, what were you thinking when you came up with that? That's the question there. What were you thinking? But yeah, don't let any of that, the momentum they have, unravel you. Don't let this assumption that a real war is going on or whatever else unravel you. Focus more on what you need to bring to the dance. That's what you need to do. Focus more on your company, focus more on what you need to bring to the dance, and focus more on making sure the storytelling with all the specific stories that you have laid out, with the exceptions of the ones that are currently being focused on right now going into Revolution, start focusing on those other stories as well. Give them a directional path, going into Revolution, going into the spring of this year, going into Blood and Guts. So that way, people won't tune out of your show. They will not tune out. Because when they start tuning out, you have to realize that that's not only affecting your company overall, and its ratings, viewerships numbers, it's potentially affecting your future with Warner Brothers Discovery and your future with TNT and TBS. So if I'm Tony Khan, I get on the ball right now. I look at that reaction I got from last night, and I say, okay, I got to focus on that storytelling. I need to get people together that know what to do when it comes to storytelling to help me out and focus on getting that fixed as you approach going into Revolution. That's what he needs to do. Because again, with Danielson, and MJF, and now Cage and Jungle Boy, you have 2 gems there. You have a potential other gems in the works, but you just need to get the focus back on them, not lacking it. That's what you need to do. But I just wanted to come out here, guys, and give you my live thoughts on that before I jump in the shower to get ready for work. Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, I will talk to you all later. But give me your thoughts, guys. I'd love to hear you from your experience watching AEW Dynamite. If you believe what they're lacking is indeed, the storytelling that Tony Khan needs to focus on as we go into Revolution and further on down the line this year. So until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. I got to get in the shower now. And I am out.